I never thought I'd walk out onto my own deck and see my backyard pool hijacked for someone else's wedding event. But there it was. Streamers, champagne women in matching robes, and Karen herself prancing around in a veil like she owned the place. And the worst part, she wasn't just trespassing. She was the HOA president, convinced my private pool was some kind of community venue. That was the moment I realized I wasn't dealing with an annoying neighbor. I was at war with someone who thought she was untouchable. It started on a Saturday morning. I was sipping coffee watching the quiet neighborhood wake up when pastel balloons started bobbing over my fence like an invasion. Then I heard it, Karen's shrill voice barking directions, telling her friends to angle for better lighting, shrieking about the perfect backdrop. I stepped outside, and my jaw just about hit the floor. My pool, the one I cleaned, paid to heat, maintained year-round, had been transformed into her bridal shower set. She had a streamer arch on my diving board, a champagne table sitting where my grill used to be, and guests dipping their toes in the water like it was a resort. When I shouted her name, she just waved like I was her waiter. She shouted back that her cousin's place wasn't photogenic enough, so she moved the event here. No apology, no hesitation. Just entitlement wrapped up in a veil. I wanted to scream, "Call the cops, tear down her decorations." But then I realized something. Karen thrived on conflict. If I made a scene, she'd spin it into her playing the victim. What she really cared about wasn't my pool, it was her image. This whole bridal shower was meant for Instagram. If I ruined her day outright, she'd milk it. But if I let her have what she wanted, just not the way she wanted, that would cut deeper. So I made a call. A buddy of mine works in pool maintenance, and he owed me a favor. 15 minutes later, he was pouring a harmless cobalt dye into the water. It wasn't toxic, didn't stain, but it turned the pool into a glowing blue gemstone so intense that cameras couldn't handle it. White fabrics glowed like radioactive relics. Skin tones warped into gray. By the time the photographer showed up, every picture looked like something out of a bad sci-fi movie. And just when Karen was posing her bridesmaids in their gauzy pink dresses, I posted on the neighborhood forum, "Community Swim Day, free snacks open invite." 20 minutes later, kids were cannonballing into the water, parents setting up lawn chairs, someone brought a cooler. Her glossy bridal shower turned into a chaotic block party, and there was nothing she could do but grit her teeth. When she finally stormed up to my deck, I was calmly refilling my coffee. She demanded I shut it down. I smiled and told her, "You're welcome to keep using the pool as long as you don't mind sharing. After all, doesn't the HOA encourage community gatherings?" She turned. Scarlett muttered something about calling the police, but she didn't. Deep down, she knew she had no leg to stand on. A few days later, I thought maybe that was the end. But then I got a letter, the first ever from the HOA, accusing me of violating neighborhood spirit by hosting an unsanctioned event, and whose signature was at the bottom, Karen's. I actually laughed. The same woman who trespassed on my property was now trying to fine me for letting my neighbors swim. I didn't respond to her. I went over her head straight to the real HOA president. Attached photos of her bridal shower explained what happened, kept it neutral. He replied in one line, "You are not subject to HOA rules. This matter should not have been brought to you. I will address it internally." That should have shut her down. But Karen wasn't wired to back off. The next morning, she showed up at my door with 2 board members in tow, demanding $500 for a venue fee. She handed me an invoice printed at home, claiming I'd profited from publicity value. I told her sure I'd pay once she produced a notarized letter from the HOA president confirming the fee was legitimate. Her smile twitched, and she walked away. That's when I realized she'd never quit. Rumors spread fast. A neighbor told me Karen was already planning a pre-wedding brunch at my pool. Instead of locking her out completely, I prepared. I added a different pool additive, an invisible agent that only shows up in photos as swirling rainbow light. Sure enough, the day came. She arrived with a string quartet, floral arrangements, a hired photographer. She muttered something about sharing the space when I forced her to admit she had no exclusive rights, and I opened the gate. They set up posed by the water, and the camera revealed the chaos. Dresses shimmered in weird metallic colors, skin tones warped whites turned iridescent. Karen demanded to see the shots and froze. Her perfect aesthetic had melted into a psychedelic nightmare. This time she went public. On Facebook, she posted a long rant about me sabotaging her private events, claiming I endangered guests' health with chemical tampering. She even uploaded the distorted photos as proof. But instead of sympathy, the comments filled with laughing emojis. People joked that resorts spend fortunes for pools that striking. One travel blogger even chimed in, "I'd pay for water like that." Karen was being roasted in real time and she hated it. I should have been happy. But here's the thing, I wasn't. I was tired, worn out. Every day was some new scheme. A warning letter, a brunch invasion, Facebook rants. I started questioning myself. Maybe I was feeding it. Maybe I was the problem for not just calling the cops for playing games instead of drawing a hard line. For a minute I wanted to quit. Let her win. Close the gate and let it all blow over. But then a neighbor knocked on my door. She said, "That was the funniest thing I've seen in years. We're on your side." And another neighbor suggested we host a charity pool party together. That's when it hit me, I wasn't alone. People saw what Karen was doing and they were sick of it too. If I gave up now, she'd just keep doing it to someone else. That was the push I needed. Karen's next move was her boldest yet. She called city code enforcement, reporting me for running an unlicensed commercial pool. 2 officers showed up with clipboards looking embarrassed. They saw no signage, no cash register, just a private backyard. I showed them around, pulled up the HOA bylaws on my phone to prove I wasn't under their rules. They laughed, said they'd close the complaint, and one even joked, "If you ever open it for real, let us know. Nicest pool we've seen all month." That's when I knew she was running out of ammo. And then came the wedding. Karen never booked a reception hall. She actually believed that if she showed up with enough people, I'd cave and let her use my pool. I couldn't believe the audacity. So I set the trap. The night before, I worked with a friend who does event effects. We layered the pool with a reflective film that refracted sunlight into camera-destroying glare. To the naked eye, it looked beautiful. But on camera, blown-out white streaks like lightning storms. Then I hid bubble machines around the yard, motion-activated to release clouds of orbs drifting through every photo. And just for flavor, I scheduled a barbecue delivery and invited my friends over, swim trunks and all. Right on schedule, the limo rolled up. Karen stepped out in an ivory gown, smug smile plastered on her face. She marched to the gate, yanked the latch locked. I walked down with my coffee and sunglasses. "Congratulations," I said. "Lovely day for a wedding." She snapped back, "Yes, and we have the reception here as discussed." "Discussed?" I laughed. "You never asked. You just assumed." She tried to keep her cool, but her tone cracked. "Look, everyone's here, the food's coming, we'll be out by 6. You can even join." I shrugged. "Sure. But no exclusivity. My friends are already here." She hesitated, then barked, "Fine, open it." I did. And the second her guests walked in, bubbles filled the air. Sunlight danced off the water, and my friends were laughing, floating with plates of ribs. The photographer frowned, took test shots, adjusted settings, but nothing worked. Every image was chaos, washed out, dresses, glowing faces, random bubbles. Karen finally demanded to see the screen, and her face collapsed. She spun toward me, eyes blazing. "What did you do?" she hissed. I smiled. "Must be the lighting. You know how unpredictable natural light can be." She tried rallying her group for a toast, but every time she raised her glass, another wave of bubbles floated in front of her. Guests wandered over to my barbecue instead of her catered food. Her elegant reception crumbled into a backyard free-for-all, and she couldn't stop it. By the time she left Vale snagging on my gate, her expression was pure venom. 2 days later, I heard she was pushing the HOA to pass a rule fining anyone who hosted gatherings, even non-members. It was insane, but I knew she'd try. So I went to the HOA meeting, sat in the second row, phone camera rolling. Karen strutted in blazer and heels, acting like she owned the place. When her turn came, she launched into a speech about unauthorized commercial activity, waving photos of her bridal shower and reception as evidence. Then she made her proposal instant fines regardless of HOA membership. That's when I stood up. calm, deliberate. I thanked the board for their service, then pulled out a remote. The projector lit up with wide-angle shots of her bridal shower, Karen posing in my pool, while kids cannonballed behind her, champagne teetering on the edge. The room erupted in laughter. I clicked again, her wedding toast bubbles floating across her face, my friends grinning in the background. More laughter. I finished. If the HOA wants rules about large gatherings, I'd support it, as long as it applies equally to all residents, especially the ones walking into other people's yards without permission. Karen's face drained of color. The president shut her proposal down, citing lack of jurisdiction over non-members. She sat, frozen eyes locked on the table. That was it. She wasn't just beaten, she was humiliated on her own stage. I never threw a victory party. I didn't need to. The neighborhood already knew. Karen left me one last note unsigned, shoved in my mailbox. You win, for now. But here's the truth, she had already lost the only thing she truly cared about, her image. And if there's one thing I learned, it's this. The best revenge isn't yelling or fighting back. It's letting people destroy themselves with their own arrogance.